Beneath the endless dunes of the Alik'r desert, where the scorching sun bleaches bone and the shifting sands swallow entire caravans without trace, lie secrets that predate the founding of empires. This vast expanse of golden wasteland stretches across Hammerfell like a sea of perpetual silence, broken only by the whispered legends carried on desert winds and the distant cries of creatures that have learned to thrive where others perish. The Redguards who call this harsh landscape home speak of their desert with reverence tinged by ancient fear. They understand that the Alik'r is more than mere geography. It is a living testament to forgotten civilizations, a graveyard of lost kingdoms, and a repository of mysteries that scholars from across Tamriel have spent lifetimes attempting to unravel. Here, among the endless sea of sand and stone, the very foundations of Redguard culture took root, nourished by trials that would have broken lesser peoples. Long before the Ra-Garda warriors set foot upon Hammerfell's shores, the Alik'r desert harboured civilizations whose names have been scattered to the winds like grains of sand. The Dwemer once delved deep beneath these dunes, leaving behind automated guardians and brass mechanisms that still click and whir in forgotten chambers. Their ruins dot the desert landscape, like metallic bones protruding from golden flesh, testament to their ambitious engineering and their ultimate mysterious disappearance. But the Dwemer were not alone in recognizing the hidden potential of this seemingly barren wasteland. Ancient nomadic tribes carved out existence in the desert's most habitable regions, developing sophisticated understanding of water conservation and desert survival that would later prove invaluable to their successors. These early inhabitants left behind stone circles and carved monuments that still puzzle archaeologists. Their original purposes lost to time, but their craftsmanship enduring against the desert's relentless erosion. The transformation of the Alik'r into the domain of the Redguards began with one of the most remarkable migrations in Tamrielic history. When the continent of Yokudan met its catastrophic end, the survivors who would become known as the Ra-Garda did not simply flee their dying homeland. They carried with them a warrior culture refined by centuries of conflict, mystical traditions that bordered on the supernatural, and an unshakable determination to carve out a new empire from whatever land they could claim. The desert they encountered upon reaching Hammerfell's coast was unlike anything they had known on Yokudan, where their ancestral home had been blessed with fertile valleys and abundant water. The Alik'r presented an environment that seemed actively hostile to human habitation. Temperatures that could kill the unprepared, sandstorms that lasted for days, and vast stretches where no water could be found for hundreds of miles. Yet the Ra-Garda looked upon this wasteland and saw opportunity where others saw only death. The early years of Redguard settlement in the Alik'r were marked by discoveries that would reshape their understanding of both their new homeland and their own capabilities. Deep beneath the shifting sands, they found oases fed by underground rivers that had flowed since the dawn of time. These hidden water sources became the foundations around which the first permanent settlements grew, each one a precious jewel of life in an ocean of desolation. More remarkable still were the ruins they uncovered as the desert winds exposed and concealed different areas with the passage of seasons. Some bore the distinctive geometric patterns of Dwemer architecture, their brass fittings still gleaming despite millennia of burial. Others showed the rougher stonework of nomadic construction, decorated with primitive but powerful symbols that seemed to pulse with residual magical energy when viewed under the light of certain stars. But perhaps most intriguing were the ruins that bore no resemblance to any known architectural tradition. These structures, built from a peculiar reddish stone that seemed to absorb and reflect heat in impossible ways, featured curved walls and spiraling passages that defied conventional understanding of engineering. The Redguards who first explored these mysterious buildings reported strange acoustic properties, chambers where whispers could be heard clearly from hundreds of feet away, and rooms where the temperature remained constant regardless of the desert's extremes. As the Ra-Garda established their dominance over the Alik'r, they began to understand that survival in the desert required more than martial prowess and determination. The harsh environment demanded adaptation, innovation, and a deep respect for forces beyond mortal control. Water became more precious than gold, shade more valuable than silver, and knowledge of safe passage through the shifting dunes worth more than any treasure. The development of distinctive Redguard desert culture emerged from this crucible of necessity. They learned to read the subtle signs that indicated underground water sources, to predict sandstorms by the behavior of desert wildlife, and to navigate by stars that remained constant while the landscape below shifted with every wind. These skills, passed down through generations of desert dwellers, became as much a part of Redguard identity as their curved swords and warrior traditions. The religion of the Redguards also adapted to desert life, incorporating elements that reflected their new environment's harsh realities. The veneration of Tall Papa, their creator deity, took on new significance in a land where the sun's power could bring both life and death. Rituals developed around the precious gift of water, and sacred sites were established at oases and springs that had sustained life for countless generations. Among the most sacred of these locations was the great oasis of Sentinel, which would eventually grow into one of Hammerfell's most important cities. But in the early days of Rhaegarda settlement, it was simply a miracle of water in the wasteland, surrounded by date palms whose fruit provided sustenance and whose shade offered respite from the merciless sun. The discovery of Sentinel's oasis was attributed to divine guidance, and it became a pilgrimage site for Redguards from across the province. The military traditions of the Rhaegarda also evolved to meet the challenges of desert warfare. The heavy armor and traditional tactics that had served them well on Yokudan proved inadequate for combat in the Alik'r's extreme conditions. Instead, they developed lighter equipment and more mobile strategies that took advantage of their superior knowledge of desert terrain. The famous Redguard curved swords, already deadly weapons, became even more effective when wielded by warriors who could appear from behind a dune, strike with lightning speed, and vanish again into the vastness of the desert. These adaptations created a new form of warfare that would influence military thinking across Tamriel. Desert raiders could strike deep into enemy territory, supported by hidden caches of supplies buried at strategic locations throughout the wasteland. Traditional armies, dependent on long supply trains and predictable water sources, found themselves helpless against opponents who could survive indefinitely in conditions that would kill ordinary soldiers within days. The mastery of desert survival also led to the development of one of the Redguard's most distinctive cultural practices, the art of sword singing. This mystical discipline, which combined martial prowess with spiritual meditation, seemed to flourish in the austere environment of the Alik'r. Practitioners spoke of achieving perfect clarity of mind and body, while training in the desert's silence, free from the distractions of civilized life. The techniques of sword singing were closely guarded secrets, passed down through family lines and warrior schools that established themselves at remote locations throughout the desert. These schools, often built around natural rock formations or ancient ruins, became centers of learning where the physical and spiritual aspects of combat were explored in equal measure. Students would spend years in the desert, learning not only to fight, but to understand the deeper mysteries of existence that the harsh environment seemed to reveal to those who approached it with proper reverence. As centuries passed and the Redguard presence in the Alik'r became firmly established, new legends began to emerge from the depths of the desert. Tales spread of hidden cities buried beneath the sand, of ancient treasures guarded by supernatural forces, and of mysterious figures who appeared to lost travelers in their darkest hour. These stories, whether based in truth or born from the delirium of desert exposure, became part of the rich oral tradition that defined Redguard culture. The most persistent of these legends concerned the existence of a vast underground realm beneath the Alik'r, connected by tunnels that stretched for hundreds of miles and sustained by underground rivers that never saw sunlight. This hidden world, according to the stories, was populated by the remnants of civilizations that had retreated beneath the surface when the desert claimed their surface domains. Some versions of the tale described peaceful communities that had achieved perfect harmony with their environment, while others spoke of twisted beings driven mad by centuries of isolation in the depths. Archaeological expeditions into the deepest parts of the Alik'r have occasionally stumbled upon evidence that lends credence to these underground realm theories. Explorers have reported discovering shaft openings that descend far beyond the reach of their torches, carved staircases that spiral down into absolute darkness, and the distant sound of flowing water echoing from depths that seem to extend to the very heart of Nirn itself. Yet none who have ventured into these passages have returned with definitive proof of the civilizations said to dwell below. The desert's surface holds its own share of enigmatic discoveries. Ancient waymarkers, carved from the same mysterious reddish stone found in the oldest ruins, appear at seemingly random intervals across the wasteland. These monuments, weathered by millennia of sandstorms yet still bearing traces of intricate inscriptions, seem to form patterns that become apparent only when viewed from great heights. Scholars who have attempted to map these formations suggest they might represent star charts, migration routes, or perhaps something far more esoteric entirely. Among the most celebrated of the Alik'r's archaeological treasures are the crown jewels of the Ansei, legendary artifacts said to have belonged to the greatest sword singers of the Ra migration. These items, scattered across the desert through circumstances lost to history, are described in ancient texts as possessing properties that transcend ordinary craftsmanship. The crown of the desert wind supposedly granted its wearer the ability to predict sandstorms days in advance, while the sash of eternal thirst could sustain a warrior for weeks without water. Yet for every artifact recovered from the desert sands, dozens more remain hidden beneath dunes that shift with each passing season. The Alik'r seems almost deliberately protective of its secrets, revealing treasures only to conceal them again before they can be fully understood. This has led to the development of a specialized profession among the Red Guards, the dune hunters, individuals who dedicate their lives to tracking the movement of sand and predicting where lost ruins might emerge. These professional treasure seekers possess an almost supernatural understanding of desert patterns. They can read the subtle differences in sand coloration that indicate buried structures below, interpret the behavior of desert winds to predict where excavation might prove fruitful, and navigate by landmarks that remain invisible to untrained eyes. Their knowledge, accumulated over generations of desert exploration, represents one of the most sophisticated bodies of environmental understanding in all of Tamriel. The dune hunters maintain detailed records of their discoveries, though much of this information remains closely guarded within their professional circles. Their maps, drawn on specially treated leather that can withstand the desert's harsh conditions, mark not only the locations of known ruins, but also the seasonal patterns that govern their accessibility. A site that lies 20 feet beneath the sand during one season might be completely exposed during another, only to vanish again as the winds shift. The most successful dune hunters develop an almost mystical connection to the desert itself. They speak of being able to sense the presence of buried structures through subtle vibrations in the sand, of hearing the whispers of ancient voices carried on desert winds, and of dreams that guide them to significant discoveries. Whether these abilities represent genuine supernatural phenomena or simply the heightened senses that develop from a lifetime spent in the desert remains a subject of debate among scholars. The seasonal cycles that govern the Alik'r's revelation and concealment of its secrets follow patterns that seem to transcend natural meteorology. The Great Uncovering, a phenomenon that occurs roughly every 7 years, sees massive sandstorms strip away layers of accumulated sand from vast areas of the desert. These events, while devastating to any settlements caught in their path, regularly expose ruins and artifacts that have remained hidden for decades or even centuries. During these periods of exposure, archaeological expeditions from across Tamriel converge on the Alik'r, racing against time to document and explore newly revealed sites before the next seasonal cycle buries them again. The competition among these scholarly groups has sometimes grown heated, leading to conflicts that the local Redguard authorities must mediate. The indigenous desert dwellers view these academic disputes with a mixture of amusement and concern, understanding better than their foreign counterparts that the desert will ultimately reclaim whatever secrets it chooses to hide. The artifacts and structures revealed during the Great Uncoverings have provided tantalizing glimpses into the sophisticated civilizations that once flourished in what is now wasteland. Elaborate irrigation systems, their channels still perfectly preserved beneath the sand, suggest that parts of the Alik'r once supported extensive agriculture. The remains of what appear to be observatories indicate that ancient desert dwellers possessed advanced astronomical knowledge, while the discovery of libraries carved directly into bedrock reveals that literacy and learning were valued even in the harshest environments. Perhaps most intriguing are the ceremonial sites that emerge from the sand during these periodic exposures. These locations, characterized by circular arrangements of standing stones and intricate floor mosaics, seem to have served purposes that combined religious worship with astronomical observation. The alignments of these structures correspond to celestial events that occur at intervals measured in centuries, suggesting that their builders possessed not only advanced mathematical knowledge, but also an understanding of cosmic cycles that extended far beyond human lifespans. The religious significance of these ancient sites has not been lost on contemporary Redguard spiritual leaders. Many of the newly exposed ceremonial locations have been incorporated into modern religious practices, with pilgrims traveling from across Hammerfell to participate in rituals that blend traditional Redguard beliefs with elements derived from the archaeological discoveries. These ceremonies, conducted under the blazing desert sun or the star-filled desert sky, create a tangible connection between the present-day inhabitants of the Alik'r and their mysterious predecessors. The integration of ancient and modern spiritual practices has given rise to new religious movements within Redguard society. The Order of the Eternal Dune, founded by mystics who claim to have received visions while meditating at newly uncovered ritual sites, teaches that the desert itself is a living entity with consciousness and purpose. According to their beliefs, the periodic revelation and concealment of ruins represents the desert's attempt to communicate with its human inhabitants, sharing knowledge when they are ready to receive it, and protecting dangerous secrets when they are not. These mystical interpretations of the Alik'r's behavior have found particular resonance among the younger generation of Redguards, many of whom feel disconnected from the increasingly urbanized culture of Hammerfell's major cities. For these individuals, the desert represents not just their ancestral homeland, but a source of spiritual renewal and authentic cultural identity. They make pilgrimages to remote oases and newly discovered ruins, seeking the kind of transformative experiences that their forebears found during the original Ra-Garda settlement of the region. The influence of desert mysticism extends beyond religious circles into the realm of practical knowledge and survival skills. The Whispering Sands technique, developed by contemporary desert guides who claim inspiration from ancient practices, involves a form of meditation that supposedly enhances one's ability to navigate the trackless wastes. Practitioners describe achieving a state of consciousness in which they can perceive subtle environmental cues that remain invisible to ordinary observation, allowing them to find water sources, predict weather changes, and avoid dangerous areas with uncanny accuracy. Whether these enhanced abilities result from genuine mystical phenomena or simply represent the focusing of natural human senses through disciplined practice, the effectiveness of such techniques has made them increasingly popular among professional desert travelers. Caravan masters pay premium rates for guides trained in these methods, and the survival rates of expeditions led by practitioners of desert mysticism significantly exceed those of conventional groups. The commercial value of desert mysticism has led to the establishment of formal training schools in several of the Alik'r's oasis settlements. These institutions, which combine traditional Redguard warrior training with meditation practices, derived from archaeological discoveries, attract students from across Tamriel. The curriculum includes not only practical survival skills, but also the study of ancient languages, astronomical observation, and the interpretation of environmental signs that might indicate the presence of buried ruins or hidden water sources. The most advanced graduates of these mystical training programs often become members of the Desert Walkers, an elite brotherhood whose origins trace back to the earliest days of Ragada settlement. These individuals possess abilities that border on the supernatural, capable of traversing vast distances across seemingly featureless terrain without map or compass, finding sustenance and shelter in locations where others see only barren rock and sand, and sensing the approach of sandstorms or other natural hazards, hours before conventional weather signs become apparent. The Desert Walkers maintain a network of hidden supply caches and emergency shelters throughout the Alik'r, their locations known only to initiated members through oral traditions passed down across generations. These secret refuges, carved into cliff faces or concealed beneath false sand dunes, contain stores of water, preserved food, and specialized equipment designed for extended desert survival. The knowledge of their locations represents one of the most closely guarded secrets in all of Hammerfell, more valuable than gold to those who venture into the deep desert. The Brotherhood's initiation rituals are legendary for their severity, requiring candidates to survive alone in the desert for periods that may extend for months with minimal supplies. Those who emerge from these trials speak of visions and revelations experienced during their isolation, encounters with spirits of the desert that provided guidance in their darkest moments, and a fundamental transformation in their relationship with the harsh environment that surrounds them. Many who attempt the trials are never seen again, their fate becoming another mystery added to the desert's vast collection of unsolved disappearances. Among the most respected of the Desert Walkers are those known as the Star Readers, individuals who have mastered the ancient art of celestial navigation that predates even the Ragada migration. These scholars combine practical astronomical knowledge with mystical interpretations of stellar movements, claiming that the stars themselves tell the story of the desert's hidden history and reveal the locations of its most significant secrets. Their charts and calculations, inscribed on metal plates that can withstand the desert's corrosive environment, represent centuries of accumulated wisdom about the relationship between celestial cycles and terrestrial phenomena. The Star Readers maintain that certain astronomical alignments create windows of opportunity when the barriers between the physical and spiritual realms grow thin, allowing for experiences and discoveries that would be impossible under normal circumstances. During these periods, which they call the desert's dreaming, sensitive individuals report enhanced perception, prophetic visions, and the ability to commune with the spirits of ancient civilizations that once flourished in the region. Archaeological expeditions scheduled to coincide with these mystical windows have indeed reported unusually high rates of significant discoveries, though skeptical scholars attribute this correlation to the increased motivation and attention to detail that comes from believing in supernatural guidance rather than any genuine metaphysical phenomena. Regardless of the true explanation, the timing of major excavations according to Star Reader calculations has become standard practice among serious researchers of Alik'r antiquities. The influence of these astronomical traditions extends into the realm of architecture and urban planning throughout Hammerfell. The great cities of Sentinel, Ghislaine, and Tanith all incorporate celestial alignments into their layouts, with major thoroughfares and important buildings positioned to take advantage of stellar configurations that the Star Readers deem auspicious. This practice, which began as a practical method for navigation and timekeeping, has evolved into a sophisticated form of environmental design that maximizes both the functional and spiritual benefits of urban living in a desert climate. The integration of astronomical knowledge with practical desert survival has produced innovations that continue to benefit travelers and settlers throughout the region. Solar calendars carved into stone monuments provide accurate seasonal information, crucial for agricultural planning and water management. Stellar observation posts, built at strategic locations across the desert, serve both as navigational aids and early warning systems for weather phenomena that might threaten nearby settlements. Perhaps most remarkably, the star readers have developed techniques for predicting the timing and location of the great uncoverings, those massive sandstorms that periodically expose buried ruins across the Alik'r. Their calculations, based on complex interactions between solar cycles, planetary positions, and terrestrial weather patterns, allow archaeological teams to position themselves advantageously before these revelatory events occur. The accuracy of these predictions has grown legendary, though the star readers themselves maintain that their knowledge comes not from mathematical formulas, but from listening to the whispered secrets that the desert shares with those who prove themselves worthy of its trust. The economic impact of these predictive abilities cannot be overstated. Merchant caravans that follow star reader guidance experience significantly lower rates of loss and delay, while mining operations positioned according to their recommendations discover valuable mineral deposits with remarkable frequency. The consulting fees, commanded by accomplished star readers, rival those of the most skilled mages or military advisors, reflecting the practical value of their seemingly mystical knowledge. The training required to become a star reader involves decades of study that combines rigorous academic learning with intensive desert experience. Apprentices must master not only the complex mathematical relationships that govern celestial mechanics, but also develop the intuitive sensitivity that allows them to interpret the subtle environmental signs that conventional astronomy cannot quantify. Many candidates spend years living in isolation at remote desert observatories, their only companions the ancient texts and star charts that preserve the accumulated wisdom of their predecessors. The observatories themselves represent marvels of desert architecture, designed to function effectively despite the extreme temperature variations and abrasive sandstorms that characterize the Alik'r environment. Built from the same mysterious reddish stone found in the oldest ruins, these structures seem to possess natural properties that regulate internal temperature and protect delicate instruments from environmental damage. The construction techniques used in their building remain closely guarded secrets, passed down through the star reader lineages alongside their astronomical knowledge. Within these observatories, apprentice star readers learn to use instruments of incredible precision and complexity. Astrolabes crafted from rare desert metals achieve accuracy that rivals the finest imperial technologies, while crystal lenses ground according to ancient formulas reveal stellar details invisible to ordinary observation. The most prized of these instruments are said to have been recovered from pre-Ra-Garda ruins, their original creators unknown, but their capabilities far exceeding anything that contemporary craftsmen can produce. The psychological demands of star reader training prove as challenging as the technical requirements. Extended periods of isolation in the desert, combined with the intensive mental focus required for astronomical calculation, produce profound changes in consciousness that many candidates find overwhelming. Those who successfully complete their training speak of achieving a state of awareness in which the boundaries between self and environment dissolve, allowing them to perceive the desert not as an external landscape but as an extension of their own being. This transformation in consciousness manifests in practical abilities that seem to transcend normal human limitations. Accomplished star readers can navigate the trackless desert with precision that defies explanation, finding specific locations across hundreds of miles of seemingly identical terrain. They possess an almost supernatural ability to predict weather patterns, locate water sources, and avoid dangerous areas, skills that make them invaluable guides for anyone venturing into the deep desert. The most advanced practitioners develop what they call desert sight, a form of enhanced perception that allows them to see through the illusions and mirages that typically confuse desert travelers. They describe experiencing the landscape as a living entity with moods and intentions, capable of revealing its secrets to those who approach it with proper respect and understanding. This mystical relationship with the environment enables them to detect the presence of buried ruins, hidden water sources, and dangerous creatures long before conventional observation would reveal such information. The knowledge possessed by the star readers extends beyond mere survival skills into the realm of historical understanding that rivals the most comprehensive academic archives. Through their interpretation of astronomical cycles and their correlation with archaeological discoveries, they have developed theories about the rise and fall of ancient civilizations that challenge conventional scholarly wisdom. Their oral traditions preserve details about pre-Ra Garda cultures that are found nowhere in written records, passed down through generations of desert observers who witnessed the slow transformation of the landscape over centuries. According to star reader traditions, the current configuration of ruins and hidden sites across the Alik'r represents only the most recent layer of a much deeper archaeological sequence. They speak of civilizations that rose and fell in cycles corresponding to great astronomical events, each leaving behind traces that become visible only during specific stellar alignments. Their maps, drawn on specially prepared materials that can survive for centuries in desert conditions, mark not only currently known sites, but also predicted locations, where future discoveries might emerge as the cosmic cycles continue their eternal progression. The implications of this cyclical view of history extend far beyond academic interest into practical planning for the future of desert settlement and development. If the star readers are correct in their interpretations, then the locations of ancient water sources, mineral deposits, and strategic positions can be predicted based on astronomical calculations, allowing for more effective colonization and resource exploitation of currently uninhabitable areas. Government officials and military planners throughout Hammerfell have begun to take serious notice of star reader predictions, particularly those concerning the locations of ancient defensive positions and strategic resources. The discovery of pre-Ra Garda fortifications at sites predicted by astronomical calculations has lent credibility to their methods, while the successful location of new water sources based on stellar guidance has proven invaluable for expanding settlement into previously inaccessible regions. The integration of star reader knowledge into official policy represents a significant shift in how Hammerfell's leadership approaches the challenges of governing a largely desert province. Traditional administrative methods based on conventional geography and resource management have proven inadequate for dealing with the unique conditions of the Alik'r. The incorporation of astronomical timing and mystical environmental knowledge into government planning has produced measurable improvements in the success rates of public works projects and military operations conducted in desert regions. This official recognition has elevated the status of star readers from that of exotic mystics to essential advisors whose counsel influences major policy decisions. The Crown of Hammerfell now maintains a permanent star reader council whose recommendations guide everything from the timing of military campaigns to the scheduling of major construction projects. The influence of these desert mystics on the highest levels of government represents a remarkable fusion of ancient wisdom and modern statecraft that has few parallels elsewhere in Tamriel. The transformation of desert mysticism from folk tradition to state policy has not occurred without controversy. Traditional scholars from the universities of Sentinel and other major cities have challenged the scientific validity of star reader methods, arguing that their successes result from coincidence rather than genuine astronomical insight. These academic critics point to the lack of empirical documentation for many star reader claims and question whether their environmental sensitivity represents actual supernatural ability or simply the heightened observational skills that develop naturally from extensive desert experience. The debate between conventional scholarship and mystical interpretation has created fascinating tensions within Hammerfell's intellectual community. Archaeological expeditions now routinely include both traditionally trained scholars and star reader guides, leading to collaborations that produce remarkable results despite fundamental disagreements about methodology. The conventional archaeologists provide rigorous documentation and systematic analysis, while the star readers contribute environmental knowledge and site location abilities that consistently exceed what standard techniques can achieve. These academic partnerships have yielded discoveries that neither approach could have accomplished independently. The excavation of the Lost Palace of Thasad, a legendary site that had eluded researchers for decades, succeeded only when star reader predictions were combined with conventional archaeological survey methods. The palace, when finally uncovered, proved to contain architectural innovations and artistic treasures that revolutionized understanding of pre-Ragada civilization in the Alik'r region. The artifacts recovered from Thasad revealed evidence of technological sophistication that challenged previous assumptions about ancient desert cultures. Intricate water management systems, constructed with engineering principles that modern designers struggle to replicate, demonstrated that these early civilizations possessed knowledge that may have surpassed contemporary understanding in certain specialized areas. The discovery of astronomical instruments more precise than current examples suggested that the star reader traditions might preserve fragments of genuinely advanced ancient science rather than mere folklore. Among the most intriguing finds at Thasad were extensive libraries carved directly into the bedrock beneath the palace foundations. These underground chambers, protected from the desert's destructive forces by their depth and the natural properties of the surrounding stone, contained thousands of inscribed tablets dealing with subjects ranging from practical desert survival to complex astronomical calculations. The decipherment of these texts has become a collaborative effort involving linguists, astronomers, and star readers working together to unlock knowledge that had been lost for millennia. The tablets reveal that ancient desert civilizations possessed detailed understanding of climatic cycles that extend far beyond human historical memory. They describe great droughts and periods of abundance that recur according to patterns measured in thousands of years, providing crucial information for long-term planning of desert settlement and resource management. More remarkably, they contain predictions about future environmental changes that, if accurate, could fundamentally alter the habitability of vast regions of the Alik'r over the coming centuries. The implications of these climatological predictions have captured the attention of administrators throughout Tamriel, not merely those concerned with Hammerfell's internal affairs. If the ancient calculations prove correct, then significant portions of what is now barren desert may eventually become fertile again, while currently habitable areas might face unprecedented challenges from increasing aridity. The economic and political consequences of such environmental shifts could reshape the balance of power across the entire continent. The star readers claim that their traditions have preserved oral knowledge corresponding to these written predictions, passed down through generations of desert observers who maintained awareness of the great cycles even when the documentary evidence lay buried beneath the sand. Their modern calculations, they assert, represent the continuation of astronomical observations that have been maintained continuously for thousands of years, making them perhaps the longest-running scientific project in Tamrielic history. The verification of these claims has become a priority for scholars across multiple disciplines. Historians have begun searching through archives in distant provinces for references to climatic events that might correspond to the ancient predictions, while astronomers have undertaken complex calculations to determine whether the celestial mechanics described in the recovered texts align with observable astronomical phenomena. The preliminary results suggest remarkable accuracy in the ancient observations, lending credibility to both the written records and the oral traditions that claim to preserve their essential insights. The cultural impact of these discoveries extends far beyond academic circles into the daily lives of ordinary desert dwellers. Communities throughout the Alik'r have begun incorporating the recovered knowledge into their traditional practices, modifying agricultural techniques and water conservation methods according to the ancient recommendations. The results have been remarkable, with crop yields increasing and water supplies proving more reliable even during periods of extreme drought. The success of these traditional applications has attracted attention from agricultural specialists throughout Tamriel, leading to detailed studies of ancient farming techniques that were developed specifically for desert conditions. The methods described in the recovered texts combine sophisticated understanding of soil chemistry with innovative approaches to water conservation that achieve remarkable efficiency in converting minimal rainfall into sustainable agricultural production. Perhaps most impressively, the ancient texts describe techniques for identifying and accessing underground water sources that have proven consistently accurate when applied by modern practitioners. The methods involve careful observation of plant growth patterns, animal behavior, and subtle geological features that indicate the presence of aquifers far below the surface. When combined with the astronomical timing recommendations also found in the texts, these techniques have enabled the establishment of new settlements in areas previously considered uninhabitable. The expansion of habitable territory within the Alik'r has accelerated significantly since the implementation of ancient water-finding techniques. Prospector teams guided by recovered knowledge have discovered spring systems that support not only human settlement, but entire oasis ecosystems, complete with date palms, grazing areas for livestock, and soil suitable for cultivation. These new settlements, established according to principles derived from pre-Rāgada sources, have achieved levels of sustainability that exceed many traditional desert communities. The architectural principles found in the ancient texts have proven equally valuable for modern construction projects. The recovered documents describe building techniques specifically adapted to desert conditions, incorporating natural cooling systems, sandstorm protection, and materials that maintain structural integrity despite extreme temperature variations. Contemporary architects who have applied these principles report significantly improved performance in their desert constructions, with reduced maintenance requirements and enhanced habitability. The rediscovery of ancient architectural knowledge has led to a renaissance in desert construction that blends traditional Red Guard design elements with recovered pre-Rāgada innovations. The resulting buildings exhibit remarkable harmony with their environment, seeming to emerge naturally from the desert landscape, while providing all the amenities required for comfortable modern living. These structures have become models for sustainable desert development that other arid regions throughout Tamriel are beginning to adopt. The economic implications of successful desert expansion have not escaped the attention of Hammerfell's commercial interests. Merchant houses have begun investing heavily in the development of new trade routes through previously inaccessible desert regions, while mining consortiums have initiated exploration projects based on ancient references to mineral deposits in remote locations. The potential returns from these ventures, if successful, could rival the wealth generated by the great trading cities of the coast. The military applications of recovered ancient knowledge have proven equally significant. The texts describe defensive strategies specifically designed for desert warfare, including the construction of fortifications that take advantage of natural topographical features and the establishment of supply networks that can sustain operations in apparently barren terrain. Military planners studying these documents have identified principles that could revolutionize desert combat throughout Tamriel. The strategic value of controlling the deep desert has increased dramatically as new settlements and trade routes extend Hammerfell's effective territory far beyond its previously recognized boundaries. Regions that were once considered worthless wasteland have revealed themselves to possess valuable resources and strategic positions that could prove crucial in future conflicts. The expansion of Red Guard presence into these areas represents a significant shift in the regional balance of power. The cultural synthesis emerging from the integration of ancient and modern knowledge has created new forms of artistic expression that reflect the deepening relationship between contemporary Red Guards and their desert homeland. Musicians have begun incorporating rhythms and melodies derived from ancient ceremonial texts, while visual artists draw inspiration from the geometric patterns and symbolic systems found in recovered archaeological materials. These artistic innovations have gained recognition throughout Tamriel as uniquely powerful expressions of desert spirituality and cultural identity. The literary traditions of the Red Guards have also been enriched by the recovery of ancient texts that preserve mythological and historical narratives unknown to previous generations. These stories, many of which describe the interactions between human civilizations and the supernatural forces of the desert, provide new perspectives on the relationship between mortal beings and their environment. The themes explored in these ancient narratives have inspired contemporary writers to create works that blend traditional Red Guard storytelling with newly discovered mythological elements. The philosophical implications of the recovered knowledge extend into fundamental questions about the nature of human relationship with the natural world. The ancient texts suggest that desert civilizations developed worldviews that emphasized harmony and cooperation with environmental forces rather than domination and exploitation. These perspectives offer alternatives to conventional approaches to resource management and territorial development that may prove increasingly relevant as Tamriel faces growing environmental challenges. The educational systems throughout Hammerfell have begun incorporating recovered ancient knowledge into their curricula, recognizing that the wisdom of pre-Ra Garda civilizations represents an invaluable resource for contemporary learning. Students now study traditional desert survival techniques alongside conventional academic subjects, while advanced courses explore the astronomical and environmental knowledge that underlies the most sophisticated applications of ancient wisdom. These educational innovations have produced graduates whose capabilities in desert environments exceed those of previous generations by remarkable margins. The international recognition of Hammerfell's unique educational approaches has attracted students from across Tamriel who seek to master the specialized knowledge required for effective desert operations. The province's training institutions have become centers of excellence for desert survival, astronomical observation, and environmental management that serve not only regional needs, but also contribute to the broader advancement of knowledge throughout the continent. The diplomatic implications of Hammerfell's expanding territorial control and enhanced capabilities have begun to influence relationships with neighboring provinces and foreign powers. The ability to project power effectively across previously inaccessible desert regions has strengthened Hammerfell's strategic position significantly, while the economic benefits of successful desert development have increased the province's wealth and influence. These changes have not gone unnoticed by potential allies and rivals, who must now recalculate their assessments of Red Guard capabilities. The transformation of the Alik'r from a barrier to expansion into a source of strength and opportunity represents one of the most remarkable developments in recent Tamrielic history. The desert that once limited Red Guard civilization to coastal regions has become the foundation for unprecedented territorial expansion and cultural flowering. The ancient wisdom that lay buried beneath the sand for millennia has emerged to guide a new chapter in the long history of desert peoples, who have learned not merely to survive in harsh conditions, but to thrive and prosper through deep understanding of their environment. The continuing revelations emerging from ongoing archaeological work suggest that the current discoveries represent only the beginning of a much larger transformation. As more sites are uncovered and additional texts are deciphered, the accumulated knowledge of ancient desert civilizations promises to unlock even greater potentials for human achievement in harmony with the natural forces that shape the Alik'r. The desert winds that once carried only whispers of forgotten legends now bear the promise of a future where the wisdom of the past illuminates pathways to unprecedented prosperity and cultural achievement. The legacy of those who first looked upon the endless dunes and saw opportunity rather than obstacle continues to inspire new generations of desert dwellers who carry forward the traditions of adaptation, innovation, and respectful cooperation with the forces that govern their harsh but magnificent homeland. In the vast silence of the Alik'r, where the stars shine with crystalline clarity and the sand holds secrets older than empires, the eternal dialogue between human ambition and natural wisdom continues to unfold across the timeless landscape of legend and possibility. The mystic traditions that emerged from these archaeological revelations gave birth to practices that would have seemed impossible to earlier generations of desert dwellers. The Sand Speakers, an order of specialized mystics who claimed direct communion with the consciousness of the desert itself, developed techniques for reading the memories embedded within individual grains of sand. According to their teachings, each particle carried within it the history of every location it had ever occupied, every structure it had helped form, and every event it had witnessed during its endless journey across the wasteland. These remarkable individuals would gather handfuls of sand from significant locations and enter deep meditative trances, allowing the accumulated experiences within the grains to flow through their consciousness like living memories. The visions they reported provided unprecedented insights into the daily lives of ancient civilizations, revealing details about social customs, religious practices, and technological innovations that no written record could have preserved. The accuracy of their revelations, when verified against subsequent archaeological discoveries, established the Sand Speakers as invaluable resources for understanding the true scope of pre-Ra-Gada achievements. The techniques employed by the Sand Speakers required years of preparation that fundamentally altered their relationship with physical reality. Apprentices learned to slow their breathing and heartbeat to match the imperceptible rhythms of geological time, allowing their consciousness to synchronize with processes that operated across millennia rather than moments. The training involved extended periods of burial in carefully selected sand formations, during which the initiate would experience the gradual compression and movement of sediment layers as a form of temporal meditation. Those who successfully completed this arduous preparation described achieving a state of awareness in which individual identity dissolved into the collective memory of the landscape itself. They spoke of experiencing the rise and fall of mountains, the gradual formation of underground river systems, and the slow transformation of fertile valleys into barren wasteland as immediate personal experiences rather than abstract historical concepts. This expanded temporal perspective enabled them to perceive patterns and connections that remained invisible to conventional observation. The practical applications of Sand Speaker abilities extended far beyond archaeological research into domains that affected the daily lives of desert communities throughout the region. Their capacity to trace the historical movements of underground water systems proved invaluable for predicting where new springs might emerge or existing sources might fail. Agricultural planners consulted Sand Speakers to determine the optimal locations for crop cultivation, based on the long-term fertility cycles revealed through sediment memory analysis. The military applications of these mystical abilities became apparent during conflicts with neighboring provinces whose forces attempted to invade through the deep desert. Sand Speakers could predict the movements of enemy armies days in advance by reading the disturbances their passage created in the collective memory of the landscape. More remarkably, they developed techniques for creating false trails and phantom oases that would lead hostile forces astray, using their understanding of how consciousness interacted with environmental memory to generate convincing illusions that persisted long after their creators had departed. The economic impact of Sand Speaker consultations transformed the efficiency of mining operations throughout the Alik'r. Their ability to locate valuable mineral deposits by tracing the geological processes that had concentrated precious materials in specific locations eliminated much of the guesswork that had previously characterized prospecting efforts. Mining companies that employed Sand Speaker guidance reported success rates that far exceeded industry standards, leading to increased investment in desert exploration and development. The philosophical implications of Sand Speaker teachings challenged fundamental assumptions about the nature of consciousness and memory that had dominated Tamrielic thought for centuries. Their claim that inanimate matter could retain and transmit information suggested that the boundary between living and non-living phenomena was far more fluid than conventional understanding acknowledged. These ideas attracted the attention of scholars from distant universities who traveled to the Alik'r to study the theoretical foundations underlying San speaker practices. The academic investigations into San speaker methodology produced fascinating collaborations between mystical practitioners and conventional researchers. University-trained scholars brought rigorous analytical methods to bear on the study of environmental memory phenomena, while San speakers provided access to information sources that no traditional investigation could reach. The resulting research papers, published in academic journals throughout Tamriel, introduced entirely new fields of study that bridged the gap between empirical science and mystical experience. The verification of San speaker claims through independent archaeological evidence gradually shifted academic opinion from skepticism to cautious acceptance of their methods. The discovery of buried structures at locations predicted through sediment memory analysis provided concrete proof that their techniques accessed genuine information rather than mere imagination. The accuracy of their historical reconstructions, when compared against subsequently discovered written records, demonstrated that their mystical practices yielded results that matched or exceeded those of conventional scholarly methods. The integration of San speaker knowledge into official government policy represented a significant evolution in how Hammerfell approached the administration of its desert territories. Regional governors began consulting San speakers before making major decisions about infrastructure development, resource allocation, and territorial expansion. The success of policies based on their guidance established mystical consultation as a legitimate component of effective desert governance. The cultural impact of San speaker traditions extended beyond practical applications into the realm of artistic and literary expression. Their detailed descriptions of ancient civilizations inspired new forms of historical fiction that brought the distant past to vivid life for contemporary audiences. Musicians composed symphonies based on the rhythmic patterns they claimed to perceive in geological formations, while visual artists created works that attempted to capture the layered temporal perspectives revealed through sediment memory analysis. The religious implications of San speaker teachings proved equally profound, challenging traditional Redguard theological concepts while enriching spiritual understanding of the relationship between consciousness and the material world. Their descriptions of experiencing direct communion with the collective memory of the landscape provided new frameworks for understanding divine presence in the natural environment. Many religious leaders incorporated San speaker insights into their teachings, developing theological interpretations that embraced both mystical experience and empirical observation. The training institutions established for San speaker education became centers of learning that attracted students from across Tamriel who sought to master these unique forms of environmental communion. The curricula combined intensive meditation training with geological studies, archaeological methodology, and historical analysis. Graduates often spent years developing their abilities before achieving the level of sensitivity required for reliable sediment memory reading. The most accomplished San speakers developed specializations that focused on particular aspects of environmental memory analysis. Some concentrated on tracing the movements of ancient water systems, becoming invaluable consultants for water management projects throughout the desert. Others specialized in reading the memories embedded in mineral formations, providing crucial guidance for mining operations and geological surveys. The most revered practitioners focused on interpreting the collective memories of entire landscapes, offering insights into the broad historical patterns that had shaped the development of desert civilizations. The establishment of San speaker councils in major desert settlements created formal mechanisms for incorporating mystical knowledge into community decision-making processes. These councils, composed of the most experienced practitioners from different specializations, provided comprehensive guidance on issues ranging from agricultural planning to defensive preparations. Their recommendations carried significant weight in local governance, reflecting the practical value that their unique abilities provided to desert communities. The international recognition of sand speaker methods led to requests for consultation from other arid regions throughout Tamriel. Practitioners traveled to distant provinces to assist with water location projects, archaeological expeditions, and environmental management challenges that conventional approaches had failed to resolve. The success of these international consultations enhanced Hammerfell's reputation for possessing unique expertise in desert-related fields. The documentation of sand speaker techniques and discoveries created extensive archives that preserved both their practical methods and their historical revelations for future generations. These records, maintained in specially constructed libraries designed to protect fragile materials from desert conditions, became invaluable resources for scholars studying the intersection of mystical practice and empirical knowledge. The careful preservation of this information ensured that sand speaker wisdom would remain accessible even if the practices themselves faced future challenges. The influence of sand speaker traditions on contemporary desert architecture proved particularly significant, as their insights into the historical performance of different building techniques guided the development of construction methods optimized for long-term durability. Architects studying their recommendations discovered principles for foundation design, material selection, and structural engineering that drew upon thousands of years of accumulated experience embedded in the landscape's memory. The agricultural applications of sand speaker knowledge revolutionized farming practices throughout the habitable regions of the Alik'r. Their ability to trace the historical fertility cycles of specific locations enabled farmers to predict optimal planting times and crop selections with remarkable accuracy. The resulting improvements in agricultural productivity supported population growth and economic development that exceeded all previous projections for desert settlement expansion. The medical applications of sand speaker insights opened entirely new approaches to healing that incorporated environmental factors into diagnostic and treatment protocols. Practitioners learned to read the health histories embedded in the sand and rock of different locations, identifying areas where specific ailments were more likely to occur, and others where natural healing processes operated with enhanced effectiveness. This environmental approach to medicine proved particularly valuable for treating conditions that seemed to be influenced by prolonged exposure to desert conditions. The archaeological applications of sand speaker abilities accelerated the pace of discovery throughout the Alik'r, while reducing the costs and risks associated with excavation projects. Their capacity to identify the precise locations and depths of buried structures eliminated much of the exploratory digging that had previously been necessary for successful archaeological work. The efficiency gains from sand speaker guidance enabled research teams to accomplish in months what might previously have required years of conventional excavation. The development of sand speaker techniques for communicating across vast distances through the manipulation of environmental memory created new possibilities for maintaining contact between isolated desert settlements. Practitioners learned to encode messages within specific sand formations that could be read by other sand speakers hundreds of miles away, establishing communication networks that operated independently of conventional transportation routes. These mystical communication systems proved invaluable during emergencies when normal contact methods failed. The integration of sand speaker knowledge with traditional Red Guard warrior training produced elite desert fighters whose capabilities exceeded those of conventional soldiers by remarkable margins. These warrior mystics could track enemies across trackless terrain by reading the disturbances their passage created in environmental memory, predict ambush locations by sensing the accumulated violence embedded in specific sites, and navigate through sandstorms by following the historical patterns preserved in wind-blown sediments. The economic theories developed by scholars studying sand speaker methods challenged conventional approaches to resource valuation and long-term planning. Their demonstrations that apparently barren locations contained valuable information embedded in their geological structures suggested that traditional assessments of land value failed to account for significant sources of wealth. These insights led to new investment strategies that incorporated mystical consultation into standard business practices. The diplomatic applications of sand speaker abilities proved valuable for resolving territorial disputes and negotiating agreements related to resource sharing between different communities. Their capacity to verify historical claims about land use and ownership through direct examination of environmental memory provided objective evidence for settling conflicts that might otherwise have led to prolonged disputes. The acceptance of sand speaker testimony in legal proceedings established new precedents for incorporating mystical evidence into formal judicial processes. The educational impact of sand speaker traditions transformed how young people throughout the Alik'r learned about their cultural heritage and environmental responsibilities. Children who grew up with access to sand speaker teachings developed deeper connections to their desert homeland and more sophisticated understanding of the ecological relationships that sustain desert life. These educational advantages prepared new generations for leadership roles in the continued development of desert civilization. The artistic collaborations between sand speakers and conventional creators produced works that captured aspects of desert experience that had never before been successfully expressed through traditional media. Sculptors learned to incorporate sediment memory principles into their material selection, creating pieces that seemed to resonate with the historical experiences of their component materials. Writers developed narrative techniques that reflected the layered temporal perspectives revealed through sand speaker practices. The therapeutic applications of sand speaker methods provided new treatments for psychological conditions that seemed to be related to disconnection from natural environments. Patients suffering from various forms of mental distress reported significant improvements after participating in guided sessions that helped them experience direct connection to environmental memory. These therapeutic successes attracted attention from healers throughout Tamriel, who sought to understand the mechanisms underlying such remarkable recoveries. The conservation applications of sand speaker knowledge enabled more effective protection of fragile desert ecosystems by identifying the historical factors that had contributed to their development and sustainability. Environmental managers learned to read the accumulated experiences of successful biological communities embedded in the landscape, using this information to guide restoration efforts in damaged areas. The success of these conservation projects demonstrated the practical value of incorporating mystical insights into environmental protection strategies. The technological innovations inspired by sand speaker discoveries led to the development of new tools and techniques that enhanced conventional archaeological and geological research methods. Instruments designed to detect and amplify the subtle information patterns that sand speakers perceived naturally provided technological alternatives for accessing environmental memory without requiring years of mystical training. These innovations made certain aspects of sand speaker knowledge accessible to researchers who lacked the time or inclination for extensive mystical preparation. The philosophical debates generated by sand speaker teachings created new schools of thought that attempted to reconcile mystical experience with rational analysis. Scholars developed theoretical frameworks that could accommodate both empirical observation and direct consciousness interaction with environmental phenomena. These intellectual developments influenced academic discourse throughout Tamriel, contributing to broader conversations about the nature of knowledge and the limits of conventional scientific methodology. The prophetic applications of sand speaker abilities provided insights into potential future developments that could affect the long-term sustainability of desert civilization. Their capacity to perceive the historical patterns that governed environmental change enabled them to make predictions about climatic shifts, resource availability, and ecological transformations that might occur over extended time periods. These prophetic insights proved valuable for long-term planning and strategic decision-making throughout Hammerfell. The spiritual dimensions of sand speaker practice offered new pathways for achieving the states of consciousness that traditional Redguard mysticism had long sought to cultivate. The direct experience of geological time and environmental memory provided practitioners with profound perspectives on the impermanence of individual existence and the continuity of larger natural processes. These spiritual insights enriched religious understanding while offering practical wisdom for navigating the challenges of desert life. The legacy of Sand-speaker traditions continued to evolve as new generations of practitioners developed innovative applications for their fundamental techniques. The combination of ancient wisdom with contemporary needs produced hybrid approaches that addressed modern challenges while preserving the essential principles that made Sand-speaker methods effective. This ongoing evolution ensured that the traditions remained relevant and valuable for future generations of desert dwellers. The international influence of Sand-speaker methods extended beyond consulting relationships into collaborative research projects that brought together mystical practitioners and conventional scholars from multiple provinces. These international collaborations produced cross-cultural exchanges that enriched understanding of environmental consciousness phenomena, while demonstrating the universal applicability of principles that had been developed specifically for desert conditions. The preservation efforts undertaken to protect Sand-speaker knowledge and practices reflected recognition of their irreplaceable value for understanding human relationships with natural environments. Specialized institutions were established to maintain the conditions necessary for continuing Sand-speaker training, while documenting their methods and discoveries for future reference. These preservation initiatives ensured that the unique wisdom developed through centuries of desert mysticism would remain available for future generations to build upon and expand. The transformation of the Alik'r from a harsh barrier into a source of unprecedented knowledge and capability represented one of the most remarkable achievements in the long history of human adaptation to challenging environments. The desert that had once seemed to offer only survival now provided pathways to forms of understanding and ability that transcended conventional limitations. The ancient silence of the wasteland had revealed itself to contain voices of wisdom that spoke across the centuries, offering guidance for creating sustainable relationships between human civilization and the natural forces that shaped their world. In the vast expanse of sand and stone that stretched beyond the horizon, where the boundaries between past and present dissolved under the weight of geological time, the continuing dialogue between human consciousness and environmental memory promised revelations that would reshape understanding of what was possible when wisdom and humility combined to unlock the secrets that lay waiting in the heart of the eternal desert. As the fourth era dawned upon the endless expanse of the Alik'r, the accumulated wisdom of millennia began to coalesce into something approaching ultimate understanding of the desert's deepest mysteries. The convergence of ancient knowledge with contemporary need had created conditions for revelations that would have seemed impossible to earlier generations of desert dwellers. In the shifting intersection between mystical tradition and practical necessity, new forms of desert mastery emerged that transcended the boundaries between human capability and environmental harmony. The final synthesis of all the disparate threads of Alik'r wisdom manifested in the emergence of the Desert Wardens, an elite order that combined every aspect of desert knowledge into a comprehensive system of environmental stewardship. These individuals, drawn from the most accomplished practitioners of each specialized tradition, represented the culmination of thousands of years of accumulated understanding about life in the world's harshest environments. Their training incorporated Sand-speaker techniques, star reader calculations, ancient architectural principles, and mystical practices that had been refined through generations of desert experience. The Desert Wardens possessed abilities that seemed to blur the line between natural skill and supernatural power. They could traverse vast distances across trackless terrain without food or water, finding sustenance and shelter through methods that remained mysterious even to their closest observers. Their understanding of desert ecology enabled them to predict and prevent environmental catastrophes that might have devastated entire regions, while their mastery of ancient knowledge allowed them to unlock resources and opportunities that had remained hidden for millennia. Perhaps most remarkably, the Desert Wardens developed the capacity to communicate directly with the consciousness that seemed to permeate the desert itself. Through techniques that combined elements from every mystical tradition that had emerged from the Alik'r, they achieved states of awareness in which individual identity merged temporarily with the collective memory and intention of the landscape. These communion experiences provided access to information and guidance that transcended anything available through conventional observation or analysis. The establishment of the Desert Wardens as the ultimate guardians of Alik'r wisdom marked the completion of a transformation that had begun with the first Ra-Garda footsteps upon Hammerfell's shores. The harsh wasteland that had initially challenged the survivors of Yokuda's destruction had revealed itself to be a repository of knowledge and capability beyond imagination. The desert's apparent hostility had been transformed through understanding into a source of strength that elevated human potential to unprecedented heights. The legacy of those ancient pioneers who had refused to be defeated by the seemingly impossible conditions of their new homeland lived on in the achievements of their descendants, who had learned not merely to survive in the desert, but to unlock its deepest secrets and harness its hidden powers. The Alik'r Desert, once a barrier to be endured, had become a gateway to forms of knowledge and ability that would continue to inspire and guide future generations of those brave enough to seek wisdom in the silence of the eternal sands. In the end, the true treasure of the Alik'r proved to be not gold or jewels buried beneath the dunes, but the transformation of human consciousness that occurred when mortals learned to listen to the whispered wisdom of the desert winds, and to see beyond the harsh surface into the infinite depths of understanding that lay waiting for those with the courage and humility to seek them in the vast, patient silence of the wasteland's embrace.